wanted to show you how I do my CND Shellac manicures. For this manicure, I use CND Lobster Roll. It's actually a wonderful, wonderful color. I use it very often. It's one of my favorite summer colors that matches almost every skin tone. I don't think I know one person that did not look good wearing this color. So this is a client that came to me recently. This is a second manicure that I'm doing for her. So she came to me about 3 weeks ago. So this is a 3-week growth. As you can see, the nails lasted really, really well. She actually has a very, very strong, very thick nails. So this is not a surprise. People with very thick, very inflexible nails, usually their manicures last much, much longer. The color that I used was Satin Sheet. It's a darker red, like a burgundy with a slight shimmer, with a very, very good formula. And that color has one of the new brushes, which makes application so much easier. So I get many viewers asking me, what is shellac? What's the difference between shellac and gel polish, for example? And shellac is a gel polish. So it's a brand of a gel polish. So CND, it's a brand that makes a gel polish that's called shellac. So it's almost like Windex. So Windex is a brand of a window cleaner. So Windex is just the brand name, and it's so popular. And the marketing was so good, obviously, for that product that now a lot of times people call any window cleaner, any blue window cleaner Windex, which is kind of incorrect. But anyway, so the top coat that I used for the previous manicure was the Express 5 top coat. I really do like Express 5. I don't use it all the time, but I do use it when I can. So I use it for people like this client that have very thick, strong nails, and I use it for darker colors. And the reason why I only use it for darker colors is because that top coat is a little bit more porous. In order to soak off much quicker, they had to make it more porous. So because it's more porous, it tends to sometimes stain a little bit, which is visible if the clients are wearing very light colors. So with darker colors you can't see. It actually maintains really good shine, and the application is thinner on that top coat. So I applied a little bit of heat, which actually didn't even have a chance to work, and a little bit of weight, so the client does not move her fingers, the foils don't fall off. The client actually had a break on this nail. I did her manicure, and she had a break, which many of you would call that it's a very low break, meaning it was broken. From my perspective here, it was broken very high. From the client's perspective, was broken very low. So she came to me about a week into her manicure, and I redid her nail. So I took off the product, I soaked it off, and I managed to shorten the nail and basically smooth out the flake and leave the nail a little bit uneven. She was absolutely okay with that. She just didn't want her whole nail to be shorter. And what I did was, in order to even out the free edge a little bit, what I did was I applied the base coat, and right away I applied the wipe-free top coat for a little bit of strength, and I just added a little bit more of that top coat on the free edge. And then I buffed it a little bit just to give it a little bit of shape, and then I put the color on. So this time I'm going to even it out a little bit more, and the nail is going to look very similar to the others. So as you can see, the removal is not as, the removal is great. You don't even have to remove the shine, but it's not coming off the way CND advertises it, because they advertise this butterfly removal, and as you can see, the product is not removing very clean. So the top coat comes off. It almost looks like the first layer of color comes off, but the base coat seems very bonded along with the first layer of color. I'm doing everything as recommended, so I'm applying the base coat very, very thin. I used regular base coat on this client, and I don't know, for some reason, this is not coming off very clean, so I have to push it off. It's coming off very, very easily. It's very soft. The product is very soft. I don't have to scrape it, but I think if I left it on longer, it would not make the removal any better. So I left it on the nails for about 11 minutes, and I start the timing from when I start application of the wraps. So it takes me about 4 minutes to wrap the nails, and then I waited another 6-7 minutes, and then I started removing the product. So the whole shellac removal took me, in this case, about 20 minutes. This nail, you will see later on probably, has a big dip. It looks like I overfiled her nail, but what happened was I noticed that when she came in for the first time. And I noticed that few of her nails have had this overfiled area. So she came to me without any product on and with just her natural nails. And this client travels quite a bit, and when she travels, she doesn't wear any product on her nails, or she just wears regular polish, she was saying. So I asked her what happened. I asked her that I said that I noticed that the nail is a little bit thinner in that area. So she just told me that the skin was stuck to her nail. So the cuticle, she said, which it's not a cuticle, it's the skin around her nail. So it was kind of stuck to her nail, and she took a file and she kind of helped it a little bit too much. So there was like a huge, there's like a gouge in the nail. So that nail is the worst. And then there was some that you can see that there was a little bit of a indentation in those nails. But thankfully, her nails are extremely strong. They're very, very thick. So this is not going to be a huge problem. But nails like that tend to crack very high or very low, as you would say. So that is the problem. For nails like that, you see how this is not coming off? Strange. For nails like that are very hard, very thick, very inflexible, and are breaking like that in the stress area, I really recommend warm jojoba soaks, because that adds flexibility to the nail. I also recommend usually shortening the nails a little bit. This client liked the length that she had, so she just wanted to shorten them a little bit. But the problem is that when people come in every 3-4 weeks, sometimes the amount of growth that they have in the 4 weeks makes their nails a little bit too long for their lifestyle, and they tend to break them really, really high. And then it's very, very difficult to fix such breaks. I'm wiping the nails with pure acetone to try to remove the last bit to soften the last bit of the product. As you can see, her nails are quite yellow, and that's from just the regular nail polish use. They tend to yellow like this. I decided to, as I usually do, use my electric file to shorten the nails and a ceramic bit. And I really prefer shortening the nails this way because the nails will not crack, especially when the nails are very, very hard. They tend to crack, which we definitely try to avoid. La forma cuadradas pero natural.
Sí, ¿sí? Sin esta que es que las puntitas estas laterales no me molesten después.
Sí. The file that I like to use is a metal file. It's a diamond file made by Erica. It's an American brand. And this is a medium file. And I've been using these files for years and years. I think honestly I've been using them probably for at least 15 years. They are very long lasting. At least the file probably lasts a year. I have always quite a few of them. And when they get a little bit too dull, then I replace them. But I usually buy a few, I would say 6 of them a year, something like that, I would say. Es un poco más corta, pero no pasa nada, ¿no?
No, creo que no.
So I get still so many questions. So many people get very, very upset when they see me filing back and forth, saying that you should not saw the nails like this, that this really weakens the nails. And you know what? I think this is an old wives' tale, because I really don't think, and from my experience, I absolutely see no problems with filing the nails this way. If the file is a little bit too coarse, what I do at the end of the shaping, I use a buffer, gentle buffer, and I smooth the surface with a buffer, and the edge is beautifully beveled and absolutely does not catch. Nothing happens to it. The nails do not peel whatsoever. As you can see, my clients do not have peeling nails. The peeling nails and damaged nails, that comes from the surface being damaged. If the surface is not damaged, filing back and forth is not going to make a difference. What makes a difference is the coarseness of the file. So yes, using something like an 80 grit would make the ends a little rough. So the medium file, the Erica file, is, I think it's about 180 grit, 180. So it's like, yes, it's a medium. At the end of the shaping, I go over with a yellow block, which is 240 grit, I believe, to smooth out the free edge, and the nails turn out beautifully smooth. I always put pressure on the nail just so that when I'm moving back and forth, the nail does not move. It makes it much more comfortable for the client. It keeps their nail much more sturdy. As you can see, I'm putting pressure on the nail. my finger is on top of the nail and I'm holding the whole finger very, very tight. Another reason why I like these files is because they are not flexible, so they give me a great control. ¿Te molesta un poco aquí? Un poco menos, ¿sí?
Poca cosita.
So here the client was saying to me that the edge was bothering her a little bit, so she just wants it a little bit rounder so it does not bother her. So I try to work with simple tools, not to overcomplicate things. So this is just a orange wood stick that I like to use because I used it for the shellac removal, so I'm going to use the same tool to just nudge back the living skin and expose the cuticle. I talk about this quite a bit in many of my videos, but it is very important to understand what the cuticle is and what the nail fold is. So I'm pushing back or nudging back the nail fold, which is a living skin, which exposes the cuticle. So there are two pieces of skin almost on the nail, which people don't realize. They think there's just one and it's a cuticle, but it's not. So I'm not pushing back the cuticle, I'm actually leaving the cuticle behind, so I'm not pressing a lot on the nail. I'm just catching the living skin and just nudging it back. So this client, I think what she did, and people do that sometimes, they sometimes cut the skin around the nails because it bothers them. So when they come in, as you can see, the skin is a little bit, or maybe she had the skin cut around her nails before, but I think she was cutting it because she mentioned that she had damaged her nails by accident by filing the surface of her nails. So the living skin, when it has been cut in the past, at the beginning, when it tries to heal, it almost creates like a scab, which looks like a dry skin. And I get a lot of comments, people asking me why I'm leaving behind the dry cuticle. So I'm not leaving behind the dry cuticle because with this tool here, as you can see, I'm actually removing the cuticle. So the dead skin cells on the nail are being removed, but what I'm not removing is nail fold. So the edge of the proximal nail fold, even though it's dry, because when the skin is dry, dry skin is a symptom of something. So it's a symptom of impaired skin barrier very often. And cutting it does not solve the problem. Taking care of that skin and protecting that skin is the way to solve the problem. So what I do is, of course, I'm just trying to do my best to give the client the best manicure possible without hurting the skin further. So I'm exfoliating the skin just a little bit to smooth it, but I'm not trying to remove the dry skin. Just exfoliating the area, understanding that there's a difference between light exfoliation and removing dry skin. And also, let's not forget, I just soaked off the product of her nails with acetone. So that's going to make the skin look drier than it actually is. So once the hands are washed, once we put some cream and oil, the skin is going to look completely different. And when the client comes back, if they don't cut the skin around the nails, the skin really, really improves and they don't have that flaking anymore. So the bit that I'm using here to remove the cuticle. It's made for nail plate. It's a medium bit from the same company as the file, so from Erica, and it's a tapered barrel, medium. And I like to use electric file on a very low speed, so this is 7,000 RPM with a very, very light touch. You can see I'm doing these little taps almost, and I'm not pressing on the nail. I'm just catching the dead skin cells from the nail plate, and I'm being very, very careful not to file into the nail. Very often on the thumbs there is a little bit of a hardened skin around the corners, so I try to smooth it a little bit. Again, I'm not trying to remove anything, just to smooth it. As you can see, there is not a lot of dust flying around when I'm doing this. Cuticle normally is quite thin, so there's not a lot of skin on top of that nail plate, so you have to make sure that you're not catching the nail. So this is a technique that it looks very easy, it looks really fun, but it is a technique that you have to really train your hand in order to do this properly. So I've been using electric file for over 20 years, and I did not start with doing these type of manicures. So years ago I was doing gels, I was doing acrylic, I was doing hard gel, so I was petrified of electric files. I was really, really scared. So I actually took a official training, AEFM, Electric File Association, manufacturers or something. And I got the basics, but in order to learn how to use it properly, I just started use the file, and I bought a very expensive file at the time. So I bought the Erica MT20, and that was a lot of money back then. I think I paid like $800 for that machine, but I wanted the best machine. I'm actually glad that I did it because it's one of the best files. It's not made, unfortunately, anymore, so it's not something that is available anymore, but it was, for that time, it was excellent machine. And I still have it. It's still my first machine, still works perfectly. So I started with just shortening the nails. When I got comfortable, when I got confident with the nail shortening, I then moved on to the nail surface, and I would debulk the product. So I would remove excess product from the bottom part of the nail. When you're looking at the nail from here, from my angle, it would be from the stress area down. So because when people would come in for rebalance, you would rebalance the product, meaning you would remove the excess from the free edge, and then you would move back the apex, and so on and so on. And then I would finish by hand filing. So that's how I learned how to use electric file. Once I was comfortable with that, then I started prepping the natural nail with it. So now you can see me using the yellow buffer block. So these yellow buffer blocks are blocks that I buy in bulk, and they're bigger blocks, but I cut them into 4 because I don't reuse them. You can't sanitize them properly. And because there was still some of that base coat on the nail, and the nails are very, very thick. As you can see, I very, very gently, without putting a lot of pressure, you can see that that buffer is barely pressing on the nail, just removing and smoothing the nail, because if there is any catches, any little pieces of nail sticking up or base coat, the product is going to, the base coat is going to cure with a little bump, and the color is going to cure with the little bump, and then it just makes the whole process a mess. Then you have to fix it. Difficult to fix. And with this step, you can see that I'm smoothing the free edge, as I mentioned before, just to make sure that the free edge is nice and smooth, that there's no hard edges. So normally I try to use the buffer as little as I can. Normally when I see my regular clients, I remove the shine just from the new growth, and I try really not to buff the whole surface of the nail. So the dry manicure part took me 20 minutes. Now I'm just showing the client the two colors that she wanted to see on her nails. So this is Liberté, beautiful orangey red, and Lobster Roll. So Lobster Roll looks, in this light, looks almost pink, and it looks much more orangey in the natural light. And this is what I often do for the clients. I turn off the lamp, because the lamp that I'm using, it's the daylight lamp. It's very, very bright, so it's excellent for work, but it does not show the true colors sometimes. So I like to show them how the color looks in a normal light. So I'm using Scrub Fresh to wipe the nails, making sure that I wipe the free edge as well, and clean like almost under the nail. So now this is what I did for this client, because this client has a tendency to touch her hands. I cleaned off her one hand and I immediately went on to putting on the base coat, because I knew that if I wiped the other hand, as I'm painting this hand, she would probably forget not to touch her hand, and she would touch it and I would have to wipe it again. So for clients like that, that cannot keep their hands on the table, I usually do wipe one hand first, polish, put their hand in the lamp, and ask them to keep their hand in the lamp, and then wipe the other hand and apply the base coat on the other hand. Once the color is on, usually they remember not to touch their hands. Before application of shellac has to be, or any gel polish or any artificial products, has to be squeaky clean. So when people scratch their face or they go to touch their hair, that deposits a little bit of sometimes oil or makeup onto that area, and the product is not going to stick very well. It's going to stick a bit, but it's not going to be a very long-lasting bond, and it tends to then either lift from that area or peel. So we have to be very, very careful so we don't touch the nail, or we don't let the client touch their nail. So the CND Shellac is a gel polish system that creates a very thin colored coating, which mimics the look of the nail polish. Now, as you can see, with this nail, there was a definite imperfection in that nail. There was a gouge there. So many people would try to cover this and apply some gel to even out the nail. And many systems or many nail technicians are using a thicker layer of base coat, which they call like a rubber base or something. Rubber base, all it means it's a very adhesive gel that's a little bit thicker, that allows you to apply it in a thicker coat in order to camouflage the imperfections. And you would normally apply it in a thin coat, and then you would put like a bead of product that you would then move it around to smooth the nail. But in my opinion, this is not really a base coat. It's a natural nail overlay at that point, because if you are adding structure to the nail, it's not a gel polish application. You're correcting the shape, which then, to me, that is a gel overlay made out of a flexible, thin gel coating. So this would be a different service. So I could add this as a service or as an add-on, but funny enough, my clients don't usually mind the sometimes slight imperfections in their nails, and they do enjoy the very, very thin look of how shellac looks. Also, let's not forget that the thicker the product is, the gel is, the more difficult it's going to be to soak off. So then these type of products have to be then filed off and then soaked off, but usually filed off, leaving some of the gel behind. So there is no perfect services. There is no perfect techniques. There are just different techniques and different choices that people have. I prefer this system because of how natural it looks, how thin the nails look, and how easily it comes off. But definitely there is an option of adding a structure coat if you want to. For that, you could use plexigel from CND, which I have tried, but I wasn't too crazy about it. I personally don't think it gave me any longer wear. It was much more difficult to soak off, much more work, so that would make the service more expensive. Again, it's just a preference. The first coat of shellac, it has to be applied very, very thin, very thin. You should still see normally that coat should still be a little transparent. As you can see, I'm not wrapping the free edge because I came up with this technique of mine a long time ago of basically applying the first coat of color very thin, flash curing it. Flash curing usually means putting the color under the light for a few seconds, which makes the product almost set. It doesn't make it cure properly, but it makes it set, so it makes it so the product doesn't move anymore. It's set in place. Now you can see me grabbing the smallest amount of color and putting it on the free edge to just wrap the free edge. So if I did the same step without flash curing the previous coat, this part that I'm just applying would join with the previous color and it would still pull away from the free edge. So I found that this way the color sticks to the free edge and it doesn't move anywhere and gives me a perfect edge. And I do that only once because, as you can see, the amount of product here is like enough for 2 coats, right? So it's like a nice opaque look now. So now I'm going to apply the second coat. I won't have to rub the free edge again. By the way, Lobster Roll is slightly jelly. It's not a very creamy color. So it has that beautiful depth, almost a candy look to it. It's a very easy color to apply. I highly recommend the color. It's a must-have. Definitely color. By the way, if you like this color and you would like to find a similar color in the Dazzle Dry, go for Galactic Fire. Galactic Fire is maybe a little bit more, it really depends, maybe a little bit more orangey, but also it's absolutely gorgeous. You have to have it. Galactic Fire, again, it's one of those colors that looks absolutely stunning on everyone. It's one of those colors that you will definitely, if you like it, you will enjoy wearing it. As you can see, I just looked at the bottom of the brush to see how much color I have. Sometimes when I pick up more product, I don't go back to dip in the bottle. I just see I got more there. Spreads nicely. This color is such a pleasure to work with. Now again, I'm going to use the Express 5 top coat. I find the consistency of this top coat is thinner. It stays thinner longer. It doesn't go too thick too quickly. Like I mentioned, I really like it for my clients with very strong, thick nails. It soaks off quicker. It's supposed to soak off in 5 minutes. Which usually it does. But I find the longer people wear the product, the longer it takes for the product to soak off. So when the shellac is removed, and I did this little test where I was swatching a lot of colors, and I would swatch the color, put a top coat, and then I would soak it off immediately, the color would come off in like this butterfly effect. It comes off very, very well. But then when you wear it for a few days, the product tends to harden over time even more, and it does not come off as easy. So when clients wear CND Shellac for more than 2 weeks, the product does not come off that well. Even in 2 weeks, the product does not come off with that butterfly effect, but for sure after 3-4 weeks it doesn't. So I found with the new wipe free or no wipe top coat, even though Shellac does not recommend buffing, if I have clients that have had the product on for 3 to 4 weeks, sometimes longer, I tend to just give the nail a little buff, and literally a buff. I don't file it with electric file. I just take a buffer, just rough up the surface so the acetone has the ability to soak in a little bit better, and it soaks off much better this way. If you are a nail technician, I'm very curious how long it takes you the actual application of CND Shellac. So the base coat, the color coats, and the top coat. For me, when I counted, when I was editing this video, it actually took me like 25 minutes to apply the shellac. So it's much longer. The application of CND Shellac is much longer than, for example, the Dazzle Dry nail polish. Because I did a video just recently. I was polishing clients' nails with a very similar color, and it took me 15 minutes to apply the Dazzle Dry, as opposed to 25 minutes to apply shellac. Mind you, it takes 5 minutes for Dazzle Dry to dry, but still that's 20 minutes. And don't think that I'm that obsessed with time, but time is important. It's important to us, the service providers, and also to the clients. And here the client, I guess when she rested her hand, she touched the towel. So there was a little fluff stuck to the shellac, the color coat, because when the color coats with any coats cure, they cure, but they cure with a sticky surface. So anything that you touch is going to stick to it. So I managed to dig out the little fluffy. Now I wipe the nails with 99% isopropyl alcohol. And this is a very, very important step. It's very important that you wipe the nails clean, that you don't leave any gel residue, the sticky residue on the skin, because so I take actually a clean pad and I wipe it again because I'm a little paranoid, but I want to make sure there's no gel, uncured gel, because that sticky layer is uncured gel. So you don't want to be rubbing that uncured gel into the skin. So now a good amount of oil for this purpose. And what I do, I add a little bit of lotion, very light lotion. I mix it together, and for a little hand massage. Absolutely beautiful, beautiful color, and her hands are beautiful. This client has such beautiful hands. Look at that. And a clean pad, wipe it again. And oil. nice, fresh manicure done. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. We'll see you soon. Bye.